welcome you all to this second event of the Thinking Through Making series, Diversity in Practice. Contemporary textiles synchronize design and technology, embracing different practitioners' perspectives and requires systematic exploration of conceptual inspirations and practical skills. I am sure today you will be delighted, as I am, to hear these diverse voices and their reflections in textile practice. So I am handing it to Öykü for the museum welcome. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Elif. I will continue my speech in Turkish. Merhaba.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second event of our project, Thinking Through Making. I'm Öykü Özsoy, Chief Curator of Istanbul Modern. We are pleased to be with you at another event of this project which we jointly carry out with Istanbul Modern and Royal College of Art. Thinking Through Making offers participants the opportunity to explore the creative processes related to textiles and to discuss them in comparison with each other. An online series of events cover topics such as interaction of fields, arts, crafts, and technology with textiles. And of course, different approaches and different frameworks and methods will be discussed in past, present, and future of textile. In our first panel held on 25th of February, the Textile Soft Systems Research Group with RCA focused on the developments of soft materials and creative combination of these materials with digital structures. And today's title is called Diversity in Practice. In this panel, academicians from different disciplines, researchers, artists, and designers will share their production and research processes with us. Turkey and UK has got an interdisciplinary design networking support, and our project is a result of this RCA team, which we have all together. And we would like to thank the panelists who shared their research and their work. And also, we would like to thank Arts and Humanities Research Council and Newton Fund to support our project. Now I'm leaving the floor to our moderator, artist, and trainer, Baget Akbay. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone, and thank you, Öykü. I am going to do the moderation of today. Let me briefly introduce you myself. I had my education in Istanbul, in Austria, and this I have had arts education. I'm an artist, I'm an educator, and dealing with different production techniques, focusing on different production techniques. I'm attending you from my workshop. And that's all I would like to tell about myself. Today, we will have some presentations. During the presentations, you may have some questions. Please write your questions to Q&A section. And please, to whom you're asking, please mention that. And then by the end of the session, we will be responding to your questions. First of all, Vanessa Tarko will be taking the floor. In 2004, graduated from Mimar Sinan University, Faculty of Arts, Fine Arts, and Painting Department. She completed her master's degree in Yıldız University Interdisciplinary Art Department, and she takes her inspiration from immediate surroundings, collecting materials and stories, which she used in her receiving pieces, videos, sketches, and musical compositions. She is also a member of Hazahuzo Artist Collective and also a member of Guguo musical group. And now I'm giving the floor to Vanessa Tarko. Hello, everyone. My name is Vanessa Tarko. I am an artist. In my own works, I'm using different textures and textile textures and also dealing with gender issues. And majorly in my practices, why I'm using textile and how am I working with textile? Approximately for 17 years, I am working with textile materials. At Mimar Sinan University, when I was a student at the painting department, I was seeking for a material to express myself. And I have selected the applied carpet weaving workshop. And with natural textiles and also fibers, I have weaved carpets, and by touching the tissues and different textures, I have had it in depth in my studies. I have collected wastes of clothes, and I have started to create my own canvas and created with pieces. And actually, textile is a very economical and very easy and mobile material. And I have left behind my canvas studies, and recently I'm using a cotton and a transparent material, but it is creating a shadow-like effect on the herbs. And in order to protect the ones of people, they use cheesecloth, gauze cloth, or a shadow cheesecloth can be the name of this cloth. I'm coloring it and transforming it, sometimes using the onion cover and tobacco leaves and creating natural paints, and also boiling it in, and also drying it under the sun. It's a very fragile material, but has got the strength to carry on my stories according to the space and light that is changing its forms. When I'm installing my studies, my masterpieces was using the ceiling, since that they are flying, they have got a flying like effect and transparent looking. It is easy to see the interwoven stories on the textile tissues, and they are creating their own stories. What I would like to speak about, another channel of mine, is the collective posture workshops. And the seeds of this workshop has started in 2010 after a research in London. I was making a research at Women's Library, and for equal voting rights, and there were handmade posters, which affected me a lot and inspired me a lot. Since then, in different countries, in different profile women participants, we are carrying on workshops to create our own posters in Turkey, in China, in Germany, in Austria, in Italy, in UK. With different backgrounds and background stories, we are placing big size posters and presenting the anger and also the voices of different women. And also it is learning and accepting. It's a face-to-face environment to learn from each other. Each of the poster work is focusing on the collective thinking and keeping the individual senses and creating a common sense of creation. And also gender-related issues are rejected, and we would like to have a class-free and gender-free environment. According to the different backgrounds, we are designing the panorama of the city. On the front side, there are anonymous human figures, and in their hands, they do have the speaking balloons or empty spaces, which gives to express their feelings and thoughts, and we are totally gathering the opinions of different participants of the workshops. There is an open call for the workshops, and it's free of charge. For all of the women participants, for a week or for a month, we are gathering and creating our pieces. And during the workshop studies, focusing on a certain topic and having a chat among that topic. And after that, sewing and drawing and word type of creative processes are taking place. And when they're dealing with those processes, they are having an opportunity to talk about their challenges in their life. Audio and video records are not taken during the workshop. Let me give you some examples. And the first one was in 2011 in Istanbul Modern for an afternoon. And in this postures, violence against women, interchanging of opinion and normalizing of violence has been the discussion topic. And it's a product of this discussion. Economical challenges and expectations from the life is being discussed in 2013 in Vienna in the World Women's Day. In my museum, I have organized a workshop, and the name of the workshop is Against the Tide. And in this study, we have discussed about feminism. Many topics have been opened, the right of abortion, and also the right of owning their own surnames, and also patriarchal registers, migration, and also modern, and also homesickness and childcare, and all of the daily mobbing type of topics have been discussed. As you can see on the image, again, sleep-tied, they are standing still and their endless combat for gender equality and their high energy is being emphasized. And in 2017 in London, in Art Night activities and events, I have organized another workshop. And all of the inhabitants of London whom have moved later or before gathered together, Brexit and urban transformation, changing economical conditions like in parts of the city and the needs of the city have been discussed for a month, and they have prepared, and we have prepared this poster. My home is my heart has been the name of it, and in the opening section in the Eastern London streets, we have had the bird flutes and we have had a performance. And another exciting part of the project was the wall painting. We have taken permissions from the municipality, and the outer space, the outer wall of the social space have had a long-lasting wall painting. And after that, in 2017, we have had another workshop named Good Days in Istanbul. And we have worked with migrant women from Syria. For 5 years, they were living in Istanbul. We have met with them. And in this workshop, we have had the traumas and experiences and dreams of women, and the participants have presented their migrant identities and moving as a woman and their breathing spaces and their exile spaces and experiences. As you can see in the figure, a big winged woman, despite the habit stories on her wings, seeking for peace and moving towards the peaceful days. As I have told you, for 5 years, and they are having troubles and challenges and daily practices, all of the need environments and communities and the difficulties which they come across and how they cope with that has been discussed in depth. Each of the participants have presented their speaking balloons and also decorated it with their own thoughts. And also the living environment of Istanbul and also Damascus living environment have tried to be presented. In one of the railings, you see the clock going to the reverse side, and it is pointing out the good old days. Living together and creating together, and for dreaming future in a better way, the meetings are very important. I would like to thank each and all of you. Thank you very much, Güneş Hanım. And our next speaker will be Begüm Cana Özgür. She is working in studio Begüm Cana Özgür, based in Istanbul and in New York. And it's a textile and a product designing studio. Begüm Cana Özgür has graduated from Bilkent University and from the environmental design and interior architecture in Cranbrook Academy. She has completed her main degree in 3D design department. In 2014, she has started her own studio in Istanbul, and the cultural richness of land has been a major motive of her works. Now, from Begüm Cana Özgür, we will listen to her works.
And I'm a designer whose focus has been on textiles and on the traditional weaving culture in Turkey. I'm trained in interior design, and I had my master's degree in product design at Cranbrook Academy of Arts in Michigan, where the multidisciplinary open structure of the school helped me to find out my actual interest lies in colors, textures, and weaving. And it also helped me to position my work in the overlap between art, design, and crafts. There, I was encouraged to leave the computer for a moment and to start thinking with my hands, playing with materials to fully understand how they behave, trying different techniques to see how they work, and to integrate the hands-on thinking with the design process. Well, parallel to this approach, coming from Turkey, a country with a wide range of crafts culture, I developed a vision on the values I could rely on as a Turkish designer, and so I focused my direction to explore more on the weaving culture. I'm not trained in textiles, I was just a beginner in this field, and actually, this was for my advantage. Since I didn't know the conventional ways of doing, I was just proposing my own ways and suggesting new approaches, so, in a way, developing a new contemporary expression through an ancient practice. Weaving culture in Turkey is spread to a wide landscape. Just like many other crafts, weaving is also on the edge of disappearing because the traditional culture cannot find a place in contemporary discussions. But losing these crafts means losing the heritage of knowledge collected through thousands of years. This knowledge is transferred from generation to generation, from mother to daughter with practice. It's not kind of a knowledge that can be preserved by putting it into literature. It can only be preserved with the continuum of the practice. And so I believe adaptation of these crafts is a possibility to bring them out to the contemporary scene and to contribute their sustainability. And that's what I've been working on. With the designs I develop and the samples I make, I hit the roads and visit the villages of Anatolia looking for weavers to collaborate with. I work with women who are very skilled traditional weavers. I show them my samples, I explain my design ideas to them, and we discuss the techniques that I developed or adapted. Together, we merge these works with their expertise in making, and that's how the initial design idea gets its final form. Working with them on the loom with 4 hands, I get to understand their abilities and their limits, and then I reshape the design accordingly. This experimental approach to a very traditional practice results in the suggestion of new ways of doing and adaptation of skills. This is a true collaboration that my vision finds a form of body with their skilled hands, reaches to satisfy the needs of the end user while providing economic income to the women weavers in the village. But actually, in this trio, me as a designer, or I should say my designs, are only binders connecting the two ends, the producer and the consumer. At design education, we are always focused on the needs of the end user, right? The physical needs, psychological and social needs of the end user. But actually, these needs are equally valid for the people at the production site. And in crafts environment, design can work as a mediator between these two ends and could be a power in social transformation. I would like to talk about this approach through a project I took role in called Atlas. Atlas is a collective of designers tasked with translating Mesopotamian knowledge and aesthetics to present day. But the main goal of the project is the economical integration of Turkish and Syrian refugee women living in the city of Harran, which is an ancient Mesopotamian city in the border of Syria of Turkey. So for the first time, as designers, we were starting the process by focusing on the needs of the production side. Because the production was going to be held by these women who mostly had psychological traumas and didn't have enough making skills, which was the main challenge for us, for the designers, to develop a solution that can integrate these women in the production process of products aiming to find place in design stores and galleries. Here we are looking at the 2 hand-woven wall hangings I designed for this project, dedicated to the Mesopotamian god of the moon, called Sin, and to the Mesopotamian god of the sun, called Shamash. At the first look, these woven artworks might look like they came out of the hands of skilled weavers, but actually they were produced by women who had no experience in weaving. In order to make that possible, the designs are developed along with a production process that would allow women who want to take role in the production to be able to, even though if they have no experience. So these pieces are woven on frame looms. This allows mobility to the weaver, which is very important in that geography. Even if she cannot come to the workshop that day, she can take it home with her to be able to continue working on it from home. On these frame looms, We made notches on all sides of the looms to tolerate the tension differences between warp threads as well as the woven weft threads. As the loom keeps everything in balance, at the end, we don't take the weaving off the loom, but dress it with a metal frame and finalize the product this way. So such basic adaptations minimize or prevent errors in craftsmanship, allowing women who have no experience in making to take role in the production and produce these wall pieces. For example, in this photo, we see Fatma, who has just woven her very first piece at the end of the 3 days long workshop she had to learn the production. To sum up, as a designer rooted in a geography with multiple cultural layers, my work is positioned in the overlap between design and local crafts, and this overlap creates a possibility in social transformation, calling the power of design to develop solutions and alternative ways that can serve to the needs of the both ends. After all, the main goal of design is to serve humanity. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Begüm, Jana Özgür. It was a very enjoyable presentation. You can write your questions and comments to the Q&A box whenever you like during the presentations, and they will be responded by the end of the session. We do have Dr. Berdan Kala. He is working at the Faculty of Textile Technologies and Design at Istanbul Technical University, and natural dyes, and also pigment printing, traditional Turkish hand block printing, and cotton recyclers are his current research areas. He did his PhD on developing an expert system software for inkjet printing for cotton fabrics in CSU and ITU. Now, our next speaker will be Berdan Kala.
Ahşap baskı, ağaç baskı.
Actually, hand block printing, what we mean as the printing technique, is being named as the, actually, different type of trees are being used, and the most frequently used tree is the linden tree, because it is soft and easy to be carved and also durable. Other than that, it is keeping the paint stable. Since it is soft, the design and the pattern very easy to be implemented, and it needs to be dry to be carved efficiently. And also the linden tree pieces should be cut parallel to the roots of the tree, and when it is being carved, it is providing a better environment to be shaped. In the, of course, old workshop, this is being used as the block printing, and the chemicals is using the starch. And starch is balancing the formulation of the paint. And the other important content is the potassium nitrate can be in some contents, but it is essential to keep the pH value, the alkali and acidic value of the product. So it is not potassium nitrate, but it is potassium carbonate. Another important material is the copper sulfate, which is the eye stone. It is the copper sulfate pentahydrate, and it has got a very important mordanting impact. After dyeing the paint, it is preventing the dye to go when it is being washed. So it is mordanting it. And when we look at the aniline, it is the basic compound. And what is being mentioned here as aniline, it is the aniline-based black material. And cotton, viscose, and also different type of materials like linen can be painted with reactive colors. And such kind of textiles printing and reactive painting recipes and chemicals needs to be changed. Of course, if you will, before passing to the prescription of printing paint, it is essential to mention a little bit about the starch and celluloses. They do have the same structures. They are composed of glucose. They are the polymeric structures. Their polymeric structures are being binded up in a certain chain reaction. And here what you can see in order to explain it in depth, let's move through the briquette example. In order to compose a ball, the network tile is being placed on each other. And this system is just the position of glucose inside the starch. And the other one, the other series is one on another, which is the cellulosic type of glucose structure. And the difference between those two structures is directly related to granular structure of starch, which is placing the difference in sequencing. In some certain chemicals, there may be some different reactions. The similar reactions on print is causing some troubles if you use reactive paints. Reactive paint is having a binding force with cellulosic structures. It's a chemical structure. If you use starch during this process, the paint, because of the similarity above, will be binding with starch, and it is not going to bind with the cotton, and our pattern will not be full in color. For this reason, all of the recipes are using arginate to bring the texture and also the consistency. You can see arginate is glucosic structure. It is similar, but it is not binding with the reactive paint and very easy to be used in such kind of paintings. And if you use reactive paint, it is not only bringing the consistency, but also it is bringing the a strong binding for cotton fibers, and there is no necessity of you using copper sulfate. But in order to penetrate the paint to the fibers of the textile, you need to create a chemical structure, and in this case, of course, urine is taking the responsibility. It is being dissolved and helping the paint to dissolve. And another chemical is the sodium carbonate. It's the reactive paint needs to bind with the textile, and it is essential to have an alkali environment. And the chemical is sodium carbonate. Last but not least, which is being added to the recipes, is ludigol, which is a commercial name of this chemical. And this chemical material in high temperatures, before binding with the cotton, preventing it to become inactive, and until the paint becomes fixed with the textile, never losing its paint features. I hope that I did not bore you a lot about the technical terms. Thank you very much for listening to me. And by the way, within the framework of this project, I would like to thank RCA and Istanbul Modern for inviting me to this event. Hope that in the continuum of these events, we will have an opportunity to practice what we have presented you theoretically. Thank you very much, Bahardan Bey. Our next artist is a textile artist, and also she's the faculty member of Marmara University at the Department of Faculty of Fine Arts, Department of Textile Arts. She was born in Istanbul in 2002. She has graduated from Marmara University, Faculty of Arts, Fine Arts, Department of Textile Arts. After working in the textile sector in 2004, she has started her graduate degree and was accepted as a research assistant at Marmara University, Faculty of Fine Arts, Department of Textile Arts. And she has received her Fine Arts PhD in 2017. We will watch her presentation. Hello, everyone. Before starting my words, I would like to thank Istanbul Modern team for their recent activities in the field of textile. Both on their exhibition, the previous exhibition, and also the exhibition, also the activities and events which was being organized with RCA are very valuable for us. Today, I'm going to focus on sustainability-based applications in textiles, and the views of my own studies will be presented during my narration. For a while, I'm dealing with sustainability. I have some certain researches, and my, of course, sensitivity is mainly focusing on the field of textile industry, which is very harmful to the environment. And I'm training the features designers. So this sensitivity have increased day by day. I have been involved in many projects. I have tried to include it in my curriculum. In the recent time, in the field of garment industry, there is the concept of sustainability and very significantly increased in the fast consumption. They have developed a slow mode of production. There are some widely known brands which are recycling the old garments, or they are collecting the used clothes and recycling them. Somehow, for a wide spectrum of consumers, they are trying to integrate and internalize this idea of sustainability and create an awareness. When we look at the roots of this sustainability issue and recycling concept, we go back to the Anatolian culture. What we speak about sustainability, the major source is having the mindset of saving. There are some techniques and practices, which is, for example, patchwork, or weaving with the old fibers by reusing the old, for example, garments, and patchwork. Patchwork is the name of Kırkyama in Turkish. I find it very inspiring, and I value it a lot, and I use it and interpret it in different ways. However, with the consumer-oriented approach, everything is being affected very negatively. I'm focusing on actually mending, restoration, and recycling. If we bring it into fashion, it is possible to create a similar outlooking, but it is rather focusing on buying new textiles and producing it with an old-fashioned vintage view and perception is the tendency in general. So it is essential to create a sensitivity. Artist is a creative source, and all of the cultural value type of contemporary interpretations and new design ways and methodologies are essential to be developed. And this is my first study with the actually materials in my hand. And with the potential in my hand, we have carried on some trials. And I'm having waste fibers. I'm not throwing those fibers away, and I am recycling them and transforming into different forms. All of those wasted clothes and fibers, and also the bobines and side products like the buttons, which are, there are some certain materials which are not very easy to be recycled, are being used in my artwork. Sometimes the textile companies are throwing away some certain textile materials, some accessories, and I am taking them with my students and creating new textile designs or clothes. And besides those, we have had some trials for printing and for colors. All of the tablecloths and different materials have been used for not being thrown away. Somehow we are transforming them into inspiring materials. And throughout this process, we are using some colored textiles in order to erase the overused paint. We are using a certain amount of textile, for example. We are not throwing them away. It is being transformed into an artwork. And this or similar type of materials are being used. And by making use of these materials, it is possible to create a new art form. And sustainable art theory, which Jonathan Chapman has created, is bringing you a different level of creation. This concept has been presented very recently. And of course, it is widely being accepted. I value it a lot. I mean that emotional design is something hope-giving, actually. When we speak about sustainability, the main issue is not making use of the waste. Without having a waste, having a long-lasting using habit. Of course, when we say it like this, what comes to my mind is the tradition of dowry in Anatolia. All of those carpets and also the lace works are passing from mother to daughter with its chest. And it's a very valuable example for us. What is being consumed is not the material, but the meaning of that material. By having this idea in mind, I have developed some ideas, I have developed some projects, and I will continue to create and design. There are some certain ideas that I'm working on. That's all I would like to share with you. Thank you very much for listening to me. We would like to thank you. Thank you, Ram, for your presentation. Our next presentation will be our last presentation from Oz Ozburuk. He is a Marie Curie Fellow in Gamification Group at Tampere University. He holds a PhD in Interaction Design from Koç University Arçelik Research Center for Creative Industries. And his work focuses on designing playful devices and environments, and we will listen to his presentation. Hello, my name is Oz Buruk. I'm going to speak about the playful technology, designing playful technologies. I am in the gamification group at Tampere University as a postdoc fellow. 4 PhD students and another postdoc fellow is making my team, and we are focusing on some wearable playful technologies. These wearable devices to play some certain games or in order to present the playful experiences on our daily lives. Let me give you an example. One of them is, which I have designed at Koç University's PhD program. The IPG is the role-play games. Rather than throwing the dice, you are moving your body, and when you're playing those games, you are making use of this wearable technology interface. By the help of this device, it is possible to apply different scenarios and play different games. In addition to that, in Tampere University, in the mainstream of gaming technologies, we are focusing on what type of wearable technologies can be designed, what type of virtual costumes can be designed are the field of our studies, and how we can manifest our games and how we can affect the design. And we are having on daily practices and basis and researching about them. What I'm going to speak today is the design framework for playful wearables. And this framework has been in collaboration with Catherine Isbister from the University of California, Santa Cruz in 2015. The aim of this framework was designing playful variables and finding the opportunities when we are designing them. When we were designing this framework, as you can see here, and our pre-designed these variable technologies, playing and testing demos have been taken into consideration as the outcomes. This design framework have taken it on 3 axes. The first one is the performative plane, and this plane proposes that since that we are wearing those devices, we can perceive them as costumes. So we can place ourselves in the fictional characters. The second plane is the social plane. And on this social plane, they are more relaxed, just like speaking, and more tight, just like hugging and touching each other. So it can create such kind of a sense. And the third plane is the interactive plane. And this interactive plane is focusing on the interaction between our peripheral body and also the artifact-oriented approaches, which we can take into consideration during our design. And how we are making use of this framework as designers. First of all, in our previous designs, we can have a critical approach for our previous designs. For example, in VRPG project, we have given hexagonal structures which they could put on their hands or which they can cover the whole arm of their body. And they have developed it. But when we approach it with a critical point of view, we have seen it was possible to change it. Especially if we would be providing some pre-designed pieces, it would be making our game designing process more practical, and also it will be easier for the gamers to present their dream characters. In Magia Transforma, we have followed a different approach. And now the framework has been designed with the new mechanical systems starting from the very beginning. Otero was an experimental approach, and in the social plane, we have thought and designed and shifted it to a different point, and we have looked what would be the outcome. We are not focusing on the design itself, we are focusing on the framework and how we can design new approaches with a more playful tendency. And in some of our courses, we have gone further and we have followed the gamification techniques, and some success results have been presented to our students. If you would like to become a thematic success, you need to push all of the planes to the very edges. And by doing that, we did not want our students only focus on the functions and results, but moreover than that, we want them to focus on the design process, and by having a playful approach, we wanted them to examine this process. Okay, why playful wearable? Why playfulness is important in wearable technologies? The first response can be as follows, because it is the anti-solution approach. We are placing a problem, but they are being very complicated, and actually, our solutions not exactly pointing out a solution. And we are looking at the analytical approach and also anti-solution approach, neither focusing on the solution nor on the functionality. In the fictional spaces, full-like scenarios and designs are being presented and trying to figure out enjoyable and also very exciting experiments. Since it's in the cradling phase, this anti-solution approach would be very solution provider. And because when I'm concluding my speech, I would like to focus on the cosplay. Cosplay is a very interesting practice. The people who are doing the cosplay are taking the costumes of fictional characters, redesigning and producing them and exhibiting them. This is a very interesting approach. Those costumes are giving us information about the feature norms, the realities, and different dynamics and different spaces and worlds. They are the aesthetical reflections and also showing us how they can be reflected on costumes. By having the wearable design, designers, we want the feature to be more enjoyable, more exciting, and more magical designs. And thank you very much for listening to me. And if you have any further questions, I will be answering them with a great joy. Thank you. Thank you very much. It was a very enjoyable presentation indeed. We have completed our presentations and we can pass to Q&A session if you like. When will you upload the event to YouTube channel? Was a question. Within a week, most probably, it will be uploaded. Dr. Kalau has got a question. The question is coming from Ümit Mesci. First of all, thank you very much for the presentations. Dr. Kalau, I want to ask you, you have adapted your research focusing on the traditional manufacturing. How did you achieve that? Thank you very much for the question. Hope that you can hear me clearly. We can adapt it as follows. First of all, the molds. Should not have to be from wood. We can use different materials. We should carve and we should produce them from different materials. A very good example of this is in 1970s being done by Mehmet Eyüboğlu, Bedir Rahmi Eyüboğlu's son. He was using foam. Instead of having wooden molds, he was using foam material to create those molds. This is a very good example of that. And if we can develop this, we do have 3D printers right now. And with 3D printing devices, we can produce those molds if you would like to bring a contemporary approach. Or the patterns, the traditional patterns can be modernized. With some modern printing methods can be printed. These are the things that comes to my mind at first stance. Thank you very much. Let me remind you, you can write your questions to the Q&A box. We can receive the questions from there. Thank you. For Uzbey, we have a question. In the complicated structures like textiles, how collaboration is important in your studies? And that collaboration is very essential. It's a very critical issue. For example, in my background, I'm an industrial designer. And when we pass to the soft materials, whatever we design, and for what we are designing it, our design methodologies are changing. Majorly in my own studies, I have worked with fashion designers and textile designers. And in my own team, the fashion designer PhD students are taking place. By the help of them, it is possible to create something to this world. I mean, that joyful creations can only be done like this. Working with costumes and working with soft materials is very hard and something different. And I really need an expert point of view to create them, to design them. Thank you very much. Canan Özgür has got two questions. One of them is as follows. In Turkey, have you ever observed any extraordinary approaches to the traditional weaving techniques? When you were working on site, do you have any interesting events or anecdotes which you can share with us in the weaving world? Your sound is off. I could not figure out the question. Would you please repeat it? It is as follows. In Turkey, the traditional weaving, have you observed different practices? When you look at the traditional weaving techniques, have you observed something extraordinary, something different than we know? Actually, it was as follows. Actually, this practice is so much squeezed in traditional approaches. There are a few designers in number who are bringing different approaches. And one reason for that is production. And the production's style is not very much supportive. At the very beginning, when I have presented my designs, I had some negotiations with some producers, but unfortunately, I could not break the traditional framework. it is an unknown, uncertain space. And the weavers would not like to get involved in such kind of unknown spaces. So they are still squeezed inside the traditional borders. I would like to ask you something. Consumers and producer-oriented approach and keeping a balance in consumer and producer is something very important for me. What is the advantage of this approach? What is its positive impact on the process? I mean, keeping and preserving the producer side. For example, when we were designing these designs, I'm working in the workshop and I'm creating them. Okay, I have done this, I have designed this. But would a person who did not know this, can they do it by considering their approach and designing it according to their skills? Is something very important. I do not want to create something torturing them, and transforming it into a format which they can produce is based on some trials. I'm creating a plan in my mind. Okay, this person may apply it like this, that person may apply it like that, but in practice, it's not happening like that. So you are revising your strategies, and it is having very positive outcomes in that project. We went to Haran, and the women that we were working were the Syrian refugee women. They were not knowing Turkish, and I was not knowing Arabic, and we did not have any interpreter, translator. And we were using the drawings, and we were using gestures, and within 3 days, without having any experience before, they have created products, and they were very happy. By the help of this project, they have reached to a different level, and they have had an interaction among themselves. They have become acquainted with us, and at the same time, they have had an income source. And they have seen that they were able to do something. So there was a reciprocal win-win situation. We have created that environment. Thank you very much. I can imagine the excitement there, and establishing that relationship and creating that visibility is very joyful. Iran Sabunic has got a question about this patching culture and mending culture. Why did you take it as a culture? Why we are not able to see the real core of the real meaning of the patch? Why don't we use an old material to create that patch? Why are we using new materials to do the patchwork? What are we ignoring in this process?
Kusura bakma ben
I was always warning, but I was also unmuted. Sorry for that. I have told it as an example for today. In the recent times, we have started to see it more and more. But when we look at the core of that patchwork art, it is losing its spirit, its narrative spirit. It is only a vision that patchwork style methodology is somehow being created, and it is not making use of the old materials, old clothes. It is not bringing together the meaningful clothes together, creating only a visual art and creating something chic and transforming it into a home textile is the new perception, is the new approach. Some certain things are losing their meaning. Do you have any proposal to solve this problem? What should be done? This was the question. Okay, we see that there is an obvious situation and there's an obvious reality. How we can bring out the good intention out again, that old and good intention, because a design material is being transformed into a consumption material. Do you have any recommendation? since that we do have a limited time, I have tried to point out this fact in the end of this process that emotional sustainable design was the concept which I have proposed. And I was exactly mentioning this point there. There are some certain things which we consume just for the sake of consumption, but it should not be the reality. We should create something that we can have an emotional tie. If we can achieve this, there will be an awareness both on the consumer side and also on the producer side. If we can achieve this, we will regain that meaning, what we are speaking. Otherwise, it doesn't have to be related with textile. Let me give you an example. When it gets dirty, whenever it gets spots on it, there may be some form changing shoes. Shoe came to my mind right now. So you are creating a tie with that product in the patchwork example. There is an emotional tie which you create and you would like to keep it there because there is a moral, there is a actually inner tie and we do not want to give it up. Very good. When I come across with the presentation of patch on the stage, when it was being praised, an old carpet was being patched with a glorious blue fiber, and I have become very angry. Why did you distort the structure of the carpet? And he said that we are praising patch, and there is the memory of the carpet, and we have kept the memory of the carpet, and we have added a value to it by weaving, by having a patch on it, he said. It was something very interesting. And the next question is for Vanessa Tarko. In her studies in using textile and the common practices, does it have any contribution to the common practices? So somehow you are relating textile with people who are not directly related with art. Do you contribute to the field of art by creating with those non-artists? Everybody do have a relationship with textile. We have spoken about patch. We're able to do patching for our own products. I'm not a textile expert. Of course, the women which are attending the workshops may be more professional, maybe the expert of textile. Actually, textile is something that we can touch, and when we are applying something, it is a material that we can think on. And yes, we are making use of waste materials. It's a very economical material to be used, and all of the embroidery and all of the patch tradition do have a long history. So we are having more common topics to discuss on when we are creating. Thank you very much. We do have another question for Jana Özger. It is related with the women that you're working with. Do you have long-lasting relationships, or are you creating relationship for once? Do you continue to work with those women, or how did you create a sustainability in your relationships? Both of them are present. In 2015, when I have started my journey, I have come across with two women. I'm still working with them, but different weavers have been involved into the process. Some of them have been excluded. We are not gathering those weavers in a single workshop. In their slow lives, in their own village and workshops, they are weaving. Some of them, for example, say that I would like to do weaving because I need money. Some of them say that I have a funeral, I cannot weave. And sometimes they would like to rest and they're being excluded. There is a continuous circulation in the structure. But we are continuously working with the weavers who would like to work continuously for a long period of time. And since then, we're not working in the workshop. Since that they are doing the weaving at their homes. When I go to their houses to check them, to look what they have done, I am getting acquainted with their families. I know their children's education. I know their relationship with their husbands. So I'm just becoming a person from their family after working for a long period of time. And of course, this is something sweet. We are not limited in a specific social environment. We are going out of that environment. And there are a different profile. We are having relationships continuously with them. Thank you very much. Berdan Bey, you have a question. Actually, in your painting techniques, I want to ask Berdan Hoca, what extent are there environmental concerns that alternative chemicals and methods used as a thickener or in a dyeing technique may create? Despite the fact that we in textile industry would like to be sensitive to environment, they are really actually polluting the environment. The dyeing sector, for example, dyeing industry, when they're in the industrialized areas, they are having a waste management system. But when we look at Istanbul, when we look at the printing workshops, they are very primitive type of structures, and they do not have a big concern about not polluting the environment. They are polluting the environment. And alternative solutions are essential to be found in the pigment. You do not have a clear-cut polluting waste. It is not the actually thickeners that you're using. They are being fixed on the cloth whenever you apply it. But when you include a reactive paint, there is a washing process. And during that washing process, the paint is being somehow treated. And it is a burden and responsibility for the facilities. And yes, it is polluting the environment. Unfortunately, the textile industry do have some pros and cons, and this is the negative side of the business. If you have time, I would like to ask a question to Oğuz Bey. Hello again. When I was watching your presentation, I have listened to you with a great interest, and you have said that you are also working with the fashion designers. Would you please briefly explain it further? You do have an experimental approach, and all of other than your studies, when we speak about the wearable costumes, could you adapt them, and what type of outcomes you have had? In practice, we have had a study. When I was in Koç University, we have worked together with Mimar Sinan University. We have carried on some workshops. And what we have examined is when we have presented these computerized materials, how do they use it? And if we place them, transform them to the soft planes and soft materials, how they were adapting it. And there have been some proposals, and we have had a publication. Despite the fact that they were soft materials, whenever we have started to work with the electronics, we were having wires or different chips, and all of them may have a space in the language of form. There is a randomizing type of approach. They would like to take those materials away. They would like to use the old-fashioned methodologies and concepts and perceptions. By making use of these new materials, how we can create a new perception. And they cannot be used, of course, on daily basis, but during some workshop, it is possible to create some samples, which we have done. And in our recent studies, we are starting to see, without having an energy source, any battery on a wearable costume, can we make it interactive? There are different ways to be used. One of the questions that we're asking, okay, if we can achieve it to make it interactive, can it be something which can be accepted by the social order, and can we use it on daily basis? And how can we design new statements, and can we use the playfulness to create them? I don't have a clear-cut outcome, but within a few years, most probably we'll have a clear-cut example to show you. Thank you very much. Another question is going to Vanessa Tarko. You have mentioned that you are producing your paints from the natural materials. Where do you find the recipes for those natural paints? Thank you very much for the question. Well, I'm trying and finding. I'm making research and also looking up some certain sources. I'm living nearby Dolapdere, and there is an open bazaars, and I'm collecting the wastes from the bazaar and boiling them and using them. Berdan Bey mentioned very important details, chemical details. I can dive into that information, but I love to try and also to learn. I would like to ask you something. Embroidery, tying, and weaving. They have got a subconscious relationship with women's studies. I mean, that networking, that tying up, that interrelating actions has got a relationship in my mindset with the side. Electronical metal is more masculine materials, but if we consider textile, it is more female. If the Industrial Revolution would be in the hands of women, what would be different? When we consider the weaving, for example, environments, we do have different looms, for example. They are not very, the looms are very easy to carry and the textiles are very easy to carry. I can bring my work to everywhere and work. There is a difference like that. What is differentiating textile from the other materials? It is something that you can do at home, and there are a lot of women artists that I follow very closely, working with textile, working with that traditional approach of textile. Despite the fact that it is something like a homework, it is a handwork indeed. And it's a free spirit. Well, that's how I can respond to this question. Thank you. There is a question, but I don't know to whom they're asking. As an industrial designer, what is the feature of conceptual design studies? Okay, it's coming to Uzbrak. And conceptual design research, it's a very wide plane. If I focus on my own field and respond, as you have understood from my presentation, I'm including the playful methodologies. I'm the advocate of that. One major reason for that is I'm a researcher. We are researching and designing. And when we are researching via design, how much will it sell? How much profits will it bring is not our concern. And the experiences that they will create and the perception on the consumer side and ethical questions surrounding it or the impact on the world is being questioned. So we are focusing on functionality and what type of problems will be resolved is not in our field. And when we speak about the conceptual design, we are creating fictional worlds and putting forth new dynamics. By getting inside these stories, we are feeling ourselves like a character. Normally, maybe we would be drawing on a paper and we would say that, oh, it will work very efficiently. We are realizing it and positioning it in reality, what type of problems may occur and what type of experiences may be created can be understood much more better. And all of the pre-recognized results may be also discovered. All of those fictional design methodologies and also playful based and also uncertainty-based type of determination may bring the conceptual designs of future on a human level and maybe more human-oriented. There is a transhumanism type of technologies which are being integrated in our bodies. And such kind of approaches will gain more importance day by day. So I would like to continue with another question. I'm a Dogo fun. And in design and absurdism, there is a cross relation in my mind. What I'm going to ask will be on the virtual side, despite the fact that I don't like the virtual side a lot. All of these face gestures are being captured and depth cameras, and also movement capturing sensors, and also avatars. And because of the pandemic is created environment, there are some certain experiences. The number of the virtual characters reach up to 10,000. All of these VTubers and so on. Do you have any estimation for the future of these areas? Actually, whatever is going around was opening a certain level of potential, and by the help of pandemic, the research and ideas have increased. And of course, it has got some different impacts, and all of our experiences will be transformed, everything will be processed in our mind, everything may become artificial, and we will try to survive in such kind of a world. Will have some psychological impact. On the other side, it will be making the world more accessible. When we speak about virtual reality, and there are some certain companies who are creating some fashion products, all of the textile money and all of the transportation and sustainability problems are being totally excluded, and we are creating a designing environment, and it will be accessible to everyone. So it may also create an opportunity. There are two sides of the coin, and it's a very actually sharp knife on both sides. On one side, it will bring a positive result and advantage on accessibility. On the other side, unexpected and underestimated psychological impacts will appear. And in this Zoom age, many psychological impacts have started to be seen. Okay. It was Crypto Fashion Week in Madrid. I have tried to understand it a little bit. It was very hard for me to follow, but it has got a world in its own. And one more question, last question. Coming from Gizem Dündar, she doesn't write, but, and she is asking about the traditional dyeing techniques. And asking what kind of a way to transform traditional natural painting techniques into modern designs and new methods. Do you think it makes more sense that this process remains individual and experimental, or becomes widespread as common open source knowledge? I can respond this question. Maybe my other colleagues may continue to respond. Let me speak about my own opinion. I prefer it to be a widespread, common open source. However, when we are doing this, the chemicals that we are using somehow should be shifted towards alternative chemicals. In the past, in the handprints, for example, when we consider handprints, the chemicals which were being used are not actually innocent. They do have a high level of harm, and if we keep those chemicals in order to make use of the traditional techniques, we are making something wrong. We should think about the alternatives. In the traditional arts, there is a master and apprentice relationship. As far as I can see, as far as I have read, there are two hesitations on master side. This traditional art should not be terminated and will continue actually and be sustainable. It should be sustainable in the hands of right people. Okay, they don't want it to get lost, and they would like to pass their hand to the right person. They do not want to give this knowledge to everyone which comes in their way, and they don't want it to die away. In order to get this information, this source, they are looking for an attempt. They are looking for a willingness, because if I wrap up, I prefer it to become widespread and open source. On the internet, there are a lot of DIY formulas or instructors methodologies. They are disseminating, and you cannot keep away this flow. it should not be the point that natural is good, artificial is bad. We need to look at its traditional methodologies and forms. Some certain parts may be preserved. We should see what should be preserved and what should be shifted. Any other comments, or do you want us to wrap up? There are no other responses. Let me tell as follows. This program is not ending up here. I would like to thank everyone. The presentations were lovely, very enjoyable. I wish we would be having a lot of more time to speak on them. Somehow we need to continue these discussions. It should not stop here. Our main objective was creating this interaction both with the audience and with the panels. In the future, we will have new meetings, we will have workshops. Maybe some of these speeches may be transformed into practices. We will see, and we will do our best. And we will share them on websites and social media and the physical environments. We will continue to work on. Thank you very much for joining us today. And thank you very much for listening to us. We thank you.